On the phone, Haley Sweetland Edwards. She is an editor at the Washington Monthly. She has a piece out in the March-April edition of the Washington Monthly, He Who Makes the Rules. Haley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, start off, the your piece is wonderfully written. It is a so essential, I think, that people understand exactly how the rubber meets the road, I guess, in our regulatory process. It's not pretty. But let's start, and your piece focuses primarily on Dodd-Frank and how it goes from being a law to being implemented, or how it doesn't go from being a law, or I should say, how it goes from being a law to not necessarily being implemented. Um, but it's instructive about rulemaking in general. But start with the story that you tell up front about the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission and one of its Democratic commissioners, Bart Chilton.
Well, thank you so much, Sam, for your kind words, first of all. It is a really important story. It's something I didn't realize was as important until I started reporting it. And as you said, this big legislation like Dodd-Frank and Obamacare, they pass, but they don't really mean anything until their rules are written, until the regulations come out of the agencies. So that's really a crucial part of it. And that story you mentioned, in 2010, one of the commissioners at the CFTC, Bart Chilton, walked into a meeting with one of the largest commodities exchanges in the country, and it was to discuss, among other things, this rule on position limits. And it says very explicitly in Dodd-Frank.
Well, tell us just explain to us just for those of us for whom this stuff is a little bit arcane. What are position limits?
Sure. Yeah. Position limits put a cap essentially on the number of derivatives that can be traded on a certain commodity, like coffee or gas or oil or something like that. That basically, so by having a position limit on there, it limits the amount that some big institution like J.P. Morgan Chase or Goldman Sachs can trade, and therefore corner a market and manipulate prices, drive up or down prices.
This has been a huge issue with things like food and oil in particular, because we have basically when we have a trading of commodities. Initially, the idea behind trading commodities like this was to provide some type of consistency of price, and so that if a farmer was going to take stuff to market, they would know more or less what they were going to get, and so they could actually plan out. And unfortunately, so much of it has been taken over by speculators that it is creating, I guess, unnatural price points for these commodities.
Exactly. So that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, they make sense in some realms. If you're a farmer, you need to know how much you need to peg your cattle to a certain price and still be able to buy them the feed they need. But it makes less sense when you have these enormous institutions in our modern world manipulating the prices of commodities like oil, which we see at our gas stations. We're paying more per gallon of gas than we probably should be paying. And all this gets very controversial, but I think that much is fairly clear.
Okay, so he walks into this meeting ostensibly to get feedback and to work out sort of the scope of position limits.
Exactly, and he goes in very diplomatically. He says to the very top brass of this commodities exchange, basically, how can we make a rule that works with you, and how can we work with you? We have to establish this rule. It's the government's will. It says so in Dodd-Frank, but we want to establish this rule in a way that it will be easier to comply with for you. He basically goes in, laying down his cards and saying, how can we help you in establishing this rule? And they respond by saying, what? you have to establish position limits. Because in the line in Dodd-Frank, it says the commission shall establish position limits as appropriate. And later on, everyone says, of course, that as appropriate means that the level of the position limits should be appropriate to the commodity. But the lawyers at this exchange actually take those two little words, as appropriate, to mean that the commission shall establish limits. Should whether or not they establish them is up to their discretion, which is obviously a very clever and very manipulative way to interpret that law.
Now this is fascinating. Let me just read the actual text. It's the commission shall by rule, regulation, or order establish limits on the amount of positions as appropriate. And the argument that the lawyers are making is that the words as appropriate modify the commission shall by rule or regulation or order establish limits, whereas the intent of that sentence was that as appropriate was to modify the words amount of positions.
Exactly. They're saying it's modifying the verb when it really obviously modifies levels. And to the point where that exact phrase has appeared in other statutes, going back at least to the 70s, if not before. The CFTC actually has position limits on grain, and they use that exact same line to establish their authority to establish those limits. So it really is a sleight of hand more than a legitimate legal interpretation of that line.
But, however, this sleight of hand has huge implications. Tell us about what happened.
Exactly. So after the CFTC issued this final rule establishing position limits on, I believe it was 28 different commodities, about a month or two later, very shortly after, two of the biggest speculators in the country actually sued the CFTC and said, on those grounds, they said that the two things, that the commission had not done an adequate cost-benefit analysis report on the impact of its rule, and second, that those two words, as appropriate, made it so that the CFTC had to demonstrate that it was indeed appropriate for them to establish these limits. And the suit went to the U.S. District Court, where it was decided in favor of the speculators, and the rule was thrown out. It's dead.
And we should say that the lawyer for the plaintiffs in this case was Eugene Scalia, whose name should be familiar to those people, being the son of Justice Antonin Scalia, and so this is now we're talking about an extended process, a law that was written now two years earlier, and the CTFC basically held off on their voting for this because they wanted to get it right. They went through this entire process and then ultimately were sued. It was overturned. And tell us just a little bit about this. Is the U.S. District Court of Columbia, which is tell us about the makeup of that court.
Well, the real problem here, the court that actually has the most authority, is one step above that court, and it's the U.S. District. It's the D.C. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, and that is a court that 8 of the judges were appointed by Republicans, and not only that, but very, very activist Republicans, those who were following the overturn of the vacation appointments, the recess appointments. In January, we'll be familiar with some of these judges' actions, that they're really just activist conservatives who are interpreting these statutes in any way they see fit. But it's the highest court in the nation for regulatory affairs. I mean, it's really the second most powerful court in the land. And things do get kicked up to Supreme Court, so I guess that's not totally true. But it's the most powerful pretty much the most powerful court when it comes to deciding what rules and regulations come out of the agencies and stand, and which don't. And as of now, they're dominated by Judge Ginsburg and Judge Santel and these sort of overwhelmingly conservative activist judges who have made a habit of overturning Dodd-Frank rules. There have been 3 that they've overturned in that process, in addition to dozens of other rules over the last decade or so.
One of them is Janice Rogers Brown, right? Who I think has been on record saying that this country went socialist after Social Security was established, or the New Deal.
That's right.
That's right. And I mean, just to give folks a sense of who is sort of essentially adjudicating this process, and just sort of the notion, just to stay on that part before we broaden this out a little bit, the idea of that the CTFC had to, the CFTC rather had to establish the notion that they're regulating this was appropriate almost sort of begs the question, because the fact that Congress had made that decision to empower them to do so, it sort of seems to me to be prima facie evidence that it's appropriate. I mean, how does one prove that it is appropriate to do this beyond what Congress has deemed to be appropriate?
Right. I mean, you get into these questions, and it gets even more complicated with these very complex laws like Dodd-Frank that are dealing in very complex realms like financial reform. A lot of the law a lot of Dodd-Frank is written very ambiguously. A lot of the verbiage is vague precisely because it's not Congress's job. They don't have the technical experience to actually know how the derivatives market should be regulated, say, or how position limits should be implemented. So a lot of that discretion of how a rule or regulation is implemented is left up to the agencies and to these rule makers, who are teams of people who have an extraordinary amount of expertise in their world. And that's one thing. I mean, you have these. I think we all kind of imagine. When we imagine rule makers at all, which isn't often, we imagine them to be sort of bureaucrats sitting in their cubicles. But in all of my experiences in reporting these stories, interacting with these rule makers, particularly at the CFTC and things, they're overwhelmingly informed. They're very intelligent. They really know what's going on, but they're facing this daunting gauntlet of information to actually implement the rule as they know, as they see fit, and as the law determines that they should.